do something. I don't know that we'll do a full class tonight. I'm actually pretty tired, and I feel like we should take up where we left off the last time. There were some questions about one of the last movements that we're doing, so let's work on that. Let's actually start with a little bit of qigong. Just do a very basic martial arts type salute. Breathing. You want to do the inflation. So as if you're expanding. I want to get you moving and breathing right away. So I can talk about my shirt. My shirt in Mandarin says Shaolin Kung Fu, something like this. And I feel like I should explain it right away. I'm not claiming to be a Shaolin. It's the same way, perhaps in American culture, somebody wears a sports team jersey. So you can think of the martial arts. This one says Tai Chi. Tai Chi Chuan. Especially because we're practicing the BIAN, we're practicing the weapons form. So reach, stretch all the way up, and then let everything relax. And so when you're reaching on the way up, grip your toes, pulling up from the base of the torso, and then let everything relax. So your fingertips pointing up, your toes pulling down. Go at your own pace. Do just 3 more. And then when you're finished, we're gonna. Oh, you know what we can do is we can start with we'll do some head and neck. Is lock your shoulders into place and turning. So feel the stretch with the same breathing we were just doing a second ago. And then change going the other direction. By the way, we can still use the Tai Chi ideas. In fact, the Tai Chi ideas lend themselves very well to other martial arts and other external practices. So while you're doing this, make sure that you have at least a half smile when you're turning. And then this next one, turning your shoulders. Go ahead, yeah, if you have a question, you can. And so with these, I want you to make the circle as large as you can, but I want you to make it slower. So imagine making the large circle, or a larger circle that is softer. It's not a smaller circle, you can make it large. But it's yin. We're not forcing, we're not pushing in any direction. And then feel the tissue just on either side of the neck so that you're using your whole shoulder, not just where you think like on a child's doll or action figure where the seam is, but instead use your whole shoulder. Your whole upper back is rolling. Slowly with the same relaxed breathing that we started with. And next, because this is a stick class, you can take one of the other, shorter stick, longer stick. If you have the shorter one, hold it closer to the shoulders. If you have the longer one, you can hold it out. By the way, the staves that I ordered from Amazon should be here early this coming week, so hopefully those will be worthwhile. And when you turn, try to keep your face and your shoulders, your center line lined up with your camera. So you're facing the direction that you're facing, and when you turn, please be aware of your knees and your kneecaps. When we turn like this, don't let there be pressure in the middle of the leg. If you start to feel that, you can release the weight and turn the toe. And then come back to the center. When we have the longer stick, we can practice some other type of qigong and stretching. We have some of this kind of stuff. With the shorter stick, you can't really do that too much. Even if you have a place to set it on, it's not optimal for doing the stretches. So if you have this one, you can turn a little bit faster. Next, if you turn the stick this way, reaching under, and then massaging the back of the arm, and then also turning the arm out so that you get this kind of rotating stretch. You shouldn't feel any pain. You can reach a little bit, but it's as if I'm taking the stick and I turn my elbow 90, my wrist 90, so the stick is vertical this way, and then reaching under this way. Doing this. Open the hand and the fingers, and then change on the other side, the same thing. Then we can do another stretch. If you hold one end and you take the other end and you pushing it up to the corner to stretch your shoulders and open the chest, breathe deep, turning to look, and then change on the other side. The same thing. You can look up to that corner as well. So if I'm facing the other direction, I'm looking up to the corner. And then come back to the center. We'll do just a little bit of this one. So try to stretch the spine, relax your tailbone, and pulling up on the upper back and neck. So breathing deep. We want to feel like keep working, keep turning. I'm going to change. So while you're turning, feel that this part down here can sink, and this part all up here in the upper back is also connected down here. So as this part is sinking, this part of the neck can stretch. So make the connection between the upper back and the lower back. And to fix the kink at the top of the chain where the neck and the upper back and neck are, we have to relax and release the area down by the coccyx, the tailbone. And then relax, come back to the center. Do a little bit of turning around the hips. This form has some deep postures, so take the time to warm up the hips and the waist. Breathing deep if you haven't changed directions. And then, you know what we should do is, let's do this one, is if you take the stick and like you're pushing it back against the top of the hips, and then let everything relax. Do the same long, deep breathing that we started with, and see if you can really relax your head and neck so that your crown chakra is pointing towards the ground. And then when you're ready, activate the feet, the lower legs, the upper legs, the glutes, so that all the chi is rooted, and then we're reaching all the way up to the top leg stretch, and then relax. Let's do the same thing. So by the way, this exercise, when we're doing this one, when we're standing up, when we come up from the folded in half position, the part of it that we don't want to do is have the blood continuing to the head top. So we're looking to balance that by strengthening and sinking the chi into the lower body. So activating the feet, gripping the calves, locking the heels, and then using the thighs, the glutes, the hamstrings, all of this back here to straighten us out, so that the energy is split. There's rising energy that we don't want to have too much going, chi into the head top, and then there's sinking energy, we're actually rooting. Let's try again. Grip your feet, push the stick, relax your spine. Let gravity do the work. Remember to breathe when you're upside down. And then when you're ready, grip your feet. Use all of your legs to support so that the energy is going down as well as up. Breathing deep, inflate all the way to the top, and relax. Next, we'll do one of these. If you have a chair, something that you like to use, we're going to do this band, so take the time. This is, again, especially useful, I find, after working out for some time. Sunday mornings are a heavy training day for me, so by the way, this practice, you can improve your accuracy for hitting, because you're hitting yourself. It's more important to be accurate. If you hit someone else, why care as much, right? But when you hit yourself, you don't want to hit yourself in the wrong place. So we can use that accuracy. And then we can extend that accuracy to other people as a courtesy or as a discourtesy. Later, when we become acupuncturists, we can use the needle very accurately to find a place to heal somebody. But as martial artists, we can use that same kind of accuracy to deliver power to an opponent, something along these lines. Let's do another exercise for the legs, which is extending this, and then take your stick on your own. Use your other leg for balance. If you have the larger stick, keep working. You can practice while I'm talking. You can do this in a couple of different ways. You can use one hand as the pivot and pull with the other hand. You can hold it in the middle and get a longer swing. Okay, cool. Everybody's back on camera. Everybody was down below the depths of the camera. Let's do one more before we do some stick form. This is, if you haven't seen it before, hitting the bottom of the foot. Again, we said before, You can think of this as a type of stimulation for the foot, getting blood flow, getting chi to go to the bottom of the feet all the way to the end of the line. So do one side, put your slipper, your shoe back on, and do the other side. You can see there's a couple ways I do it. I can just hold it with one hand and bounce it off there, right? I can use the one hand as a pivot and then use the other hand as a... Find what works best for you. If you're using the shorter one, it's probably a lot easier and you can be more accurate. And then change. You have to put your shoe back on. Do that. Before we continue, either of you have questions, thoughts, comments, ideas on something from the BIAN form? No. All right, so we were working on something in the second section. Before we do any of that, let's start with the most basic BIAN exercise, which is turning. This, if I use the shorter one, just turning. So I'm bringing it up to the center, holding it with both hands, and then letting it go to the side, center, side. You can do this exercise in almost unlimited number of ways. For the way that I first teach it is the hands sliding past each other. So in slow motion, up close, we see something like this. Right? But on this one, I'm bringing it to the center, changing, and then pulling it out to the side. The center, change. I'm holding it in the center and I'm keeping it at one end. If you're using the larger stick, that won't be quite as practical to bring it all the way to here. Right? But you can do it. So get comfortable doing this, because this is the movement that we're working on. The next movement the one that we were doing, I think it was Wednesday night. Did we skip Wednesday? Was it last Sunday? Well, the last time that we had a stick class, at the end of the class, there were a couple of people that said, we need to look at this again because I'm not certain. So if we just take this exercise, I'm facing forward, but we then turn to face the side, so I'm turning just like this, right? And when I look to the side here, I'm going to think about two things. This first end coming up to the center, to where the camera is, and then the other end is going to shoot back, the same thing, to where the camera is. So I sort of have two phases. The first one is when I'm throwing the one end up, and the second half is when I'm pulling the lower end down and out. So if we just go back to this basic exercise, I'm sort of throwing one hand up, and then that hand chases the stick, it grips on, and then it slides out the base. So without the stick in place, it goes up and out this way, up and out. So it's almost like I'm drawing a circle. But the circle has like a curly Q, or like a Q-tip at the end of it, like when you draw a Q and it has a point at the end, or the Tai Chi symbol. We can think of a half of the Tai Chi symbol makes like a paisley with a curved line that goes out at the end. So the same thing, if I'm going in the direction with my left hand, I'm throwing this up with my left hand this way. And then that left hand follows the stick. It's just lightly connected. It doesn't have to be controlling the stick. So it throws up, and then here it's sliding down, and then the left hand again takes control, and it slides out the base the same direction that it's going. And the other hand then, at that point, just becomes like a guide. So it's just here. It's like an open palm, and the staff can run along this way. What that does, it gives us two pieces, two different things to control the track. almost anything can be done one-handed here, right? All of these techniques, if I'm using the same technique, I can do it one-handed. I can pop up and poke back with just one hand. But the other hand gives us a guide. It gives us an ability to steer the stick in a unique way that can't be done with two hands. Question?
So I'm doing this right now. It feels like you can't really access free-floating power in a jab like this if you don't have the second hand, right?
I mean, you can make power if this is the bag, right? And I just use one hand. If I have the other hand tied behind my back, I can pop up and hit back with power. It just doesn't have the same kind of...
This kind of a jab would
be
a lot harder without that second.
There's no control, right? So that you can think of it like a railroad track or like a roller coaster. The second thing back here, this thing, is just supporting, and that forms a railway that the power can travel through very quickly, right? We don't have to, and one of the reasons for this is, as we're discovering, the more relaxation there is, the more power you can make. So what we want to do is get the stick flipping and turning on its own without impeding its movement. So this track becomes as little friction, right? We want to get used to turning that in the hands without any friction and feeling the movement past the skin so that we can learn to either put a brake on it right away or allow it to travel for a very long distance without having any friction. We can hold it very softly. This becomes like a type of fine-tuning with the ability of tensile control that we have with our hands that maybe there's a definition for it, maybe there's not. So let's go back to what we were working on the other day. In the form, we have the scoop, the smash, and then this is the next one that we're talking about. The pop up and the hit back, pop up, hit back. But we're just going to do it from this very first posture here. So from here, if I'm traveling to the right side, I'm going to use my right hand. And I'm going to throw the end of the stick up, but I'm going to stay connected to it. And then at some point, I'm going to switch hands, wah-bah, so they're both sliding. And then the right hand again is going to grip. My left hand is resting, and I'm going to poke, right? This poke, if you do the yin and yang grip like this, you can use cushion, you can use wall, tree, something to poke against, is very powerful, right? Especially, like you said, if you have this other hand to guide it. You can do the same poke without it, right? Here, I don't need that other hand. I can get the same power. It's just not as accurate. So this is almost like shooting pool in reverse, right? When we shoot pool, there's a couple different ways to hold the cue, right? And so here, we have the guide hand in the back, and we have the power hand in the front. When we shoot pool, it's the opposite. The guide hand is open and free-floating here, and the power hand is in the back. We're going to see some of this kind of movement happening from this form. But think of this like backwards pool, right? We have this hand is guiding, and that allows us to shoot with a lot of power into the right direction, right? So this kind of thing. You can shoot pool with one hand too, right? If you get good and you do this kind of thing, you can hit the thing directly to the thing, maybe some kind of pool shark doing that. So now, as we were saying, we're going to the right. So I'm going to pop this up, right? I'm calling this a pop-up. It's a generic name for a type of activity in the thing. Pop up, and then the hand follows all the way. So it comes up and then changes, sliding out. So my right hand throws the stick up, slides along the stick, and then grips, and then pulls. The other hand, it's gripping, it's creating a pivot, so that when I throw this stick up, I'm not literally throwing it up and out of the way, but it stays close to my center, so when this hand throws up, it can transfer. The gripping hand lets go and becomes a guide, and the guiding hand becomes the grip, and we end up doing the reverse pull hit. So now, then the next thing we're going to do is add the footwork. But without the footwork, if I'm going to the right, here, remember we said it's here. I use my right hand to throw this up, and then I use my right hand to pull the bottom back out. The stick always has two sides, and we always try to capitalize on that. So we throw one side up and pull the other side out the base. So if now this is my right side, I was going this way, here is the same thing. I can take my right side and throw it up to the center, turn, and now my same right hand pulling back to the center here, right? Is this more clear before we continue? Questions, thoughts, comments? Yeah. So now we're going to add one thing, which is the side step. So if I am traveling to the right, there's a line. I should put down some tape, some markers, so that you guys can see what's happening. If I'm traveling to the right, I have an opponent that's there in that direction. And when I see that person, I want to get them occupied. I want to make them have to do some work so that I can do what I want to do. So I throw this stick up right in front of their face, just like this, right? So anywhere on the center line. And it goes with free-floating power, it goes up. And then, as that comes up past the center point, I'm going to take my rear foot and I'm going to step into their gait, and that's when I do the slide. So this moving in that direction, is something like this. Whether I'm facing the opponent or I go sideways, right, is I pop up and hit back this way. Up, back, up, back. By the way, when we do this, please be careful. Make sure that your knee is lined up with your toe and that you're not over twisting the hip, right? This one, we can sink all the way down, make something low. Make sure that you protect your body. You shouldn't feel any pain when we're doing that. So, the next thing we have to do is connect them. And this one may be the trick. Before we do that, let's just do the left side. So it doesn't matter which end of the stick that you're using. I'll use this small stick on this side so that we can see a little contrast in the example. And the same thing, if I want to travel to the left and there's an opponent there, I want to get as much of this stick in their face as I can, going up this way. So I pop it up here. Pop up. And then the same thing, the hands transfer, and this hand is sliding out to the corner. My right hand now is guiding. So left hand pops up, left hand slides out. Up, out. Pop up, slide out. Up, out. Try not to lose control of the stick. And so now the same thing on this side is once I've got the distraction up here, I'm going to go underneath to press to that corner. So with the stick, if I use the longer one, the BIAN type staff, is if my target is here, right, the wall, you can see there's this thing. I can make my stick cover a big portion of that. If my opponent is standing here, right, they have to deal with wherever this thing is coming up the center. And while they're doing that, I'm going to sneak in underneath this way, right? This one, like I said, is very, very effective. And I feel like if you can get it down, the technique is a checkmate. You've got something right in the front, and then you can get all the way underneath. While they're busy blocking up here, they have to cover their center line, right? Because we're throwing this thing in their center. And while they're busy fiddling with that end, we come back with the other end, right? And also, in addition to that, we can be all the way, we can change the height very, very easily. So it's a good defense for us. Let's do the form up to that point in the second section. So starting from here. If we face, we have the salute, and then the ready stance, like the sword is in the scabbard, and then block, cast, waba, elbow, smash, cut, spinning block, drill, high hit, low hit, tip up, tip forward, step 2, 3, elbow, U shape, smash, and then this is where we're at, pop up the center, step back, facing a different direction, reset, pop up, step back, and then reset. More clear. Let's do a couple of these turning 90 degrees each time. Because remember, in the form, we're going to come back to this idea of continuous 7-star stepping. So the idea is there is no set form. If I go in that direction, I can pop up and hit. And then the next one, I can completely change, go the other way. Right? So if I want to go north, south, east, west, we can change direction and there's no limit, right? I can go from west all the way south, turn 270 degrees. In the form, it will make sense not to turn quite that much because we can go here and then go here, right? So zigzag. A lot of times the diamond pattern is what comes out of the 7-star stepping. So let's look at the second section after we do the ankle smash, flip into the elbow, catch and turn, smash, and then from here pop up and hit back, and then turning a different direction, pop up, underneath, sliding. You feel good? How many understand it? Still confusing? Clear? Hang on. Okay. Try to unmute.
And you do it slowly, like from where you do the loop, from there on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, after the smash, in this next one, this is what comes right before this movement in the second section. From the smash, we have this sweeping pop-up. So I'm taking a step. You don't necessarily have to. If I scoop here and I smash, I can pop up and even turn in a different direction. My pop-up can go to this direction and my poke can go to another direction. Let's go slow. So just facing, if I'm facing the camera and I'm going to go, I'll face away from the camera and I'm going to go to the right. I'm going to use my right hand to pop here and then change and then step with the hand. Opposite hand and foot working together. It's a lot like Tai Chi. Going in the other direction, my left hand goes up to the center, turns, switch, and then the left hand pulling out to the side, left hand, right foot. So you can think of this just like a wheel turning into center this way. If you think of this wheel, and then at some point the wheel checks to the corner, right? So it turns, and then once it gets flat, it pokes, slides out to the side. So, because that's ultimately what we want to do, is make this movement. And you see if I do from the za, from the smash here, right, is if you watch this, I'm going to waba and I'm going to throw this as far as I can. So I can hit all the way over there and move in underneath it, right? So this can be, remember we said this can be a short movement, right? If my opponent's close, I can go here. Or if I'm farther away, way back here, right, and I do the smash, I can practically reach, I can actually reach the target from there if I send it all the way. So it's a circle with a point, like the letter Q from the American English alphabet, right? Something like that, the English American alphabet.
Do you mind demonstrating that wheel hand motion that you were doing? I'm not really
This one?
slow. Yeah, slowly.
You know what? I will. I will teach you something from Master Sue's Taiji staff warm-up routine that will help. If you take the staff and you hold it just halfway, just below the halfway point, right? So if you find, I'll use the smaller one, right, so we can see. If you find the halfway point and you grip it here and then grip it here on either side, that's what we're going to work with. So hand yourself the stick from behind. When it's here, reach and take. Whether you reach underneath or on top, doesn't matter. And then we're going to bring it back out. And then bring it back, reaching this way. And then when you get to the front, grab, turn. This is to practice stick coordination. There's no, you can use it for martial art, right? But so practice grabbing some underneath. And then practice grabbing some over top. And this, by the way, this exercise is the basis when you see sometimes in martial arts. I don't know if I have a space in here to do this because this one is a big one. But this is ultimately, when you see this type of activity, the foundation work for it. Right? Is doing this. That's, my space doesn't, my thing doesn't have the space. But you can get pretty fast at that movement, and then it also translates to some other movements. So that one is handing yourself the stick from behind and then catching the stick in the front. And then you can start to add turns. So as it comes out, you turn all the way and turn some more and practice. So this is getting comfortable controlling the stick with the wrist, right? So that the wrist can apply the brakes without having to, it doesn't hurt. And you can use a larger stick. So this turning is just practicing changing hands, right? And getting comfortable with how much the stick can fly on its own, how much it can stay airborne. Before we continue, anyone have questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? All right, so the next movement, I think, is pretty easy, and we're gonna start on it because we have about 20 minutes left. I've had a long day, so let's see how much we can get into this next one. The next one relies a lot on turning the body. This one that we're doing, the pop-up, is once we pop up, if I'm facing the camera, if you see, my shirt has a logo here facing this direction, and I'm staying facing that direction, so I pop up and I hit here, right, my chest. My foot may step behind this way, because it's sneaky. Master Yun refers to it as a stealing step. So your opponent is there, and they have space. They like to maintain their space, and we want to steal their space by stepping into it and hitting them. The next one is we have a turning with the body. So the next one has a name, and these other ones have names too, but the name for this next one is an interesting one. It's called the iron fan. And so the iron fan is about moving your body around the target. It's a very, like a bottle kind of based idea that the opponent is going to be slightly more in the center, and you're going to be orbiting around the opponent as they're there. So if my opponent is on this side, the iron fan looks like this. First thing I do is I take my stick, and this hand, I'm going to throw it over the top, right? On the other the exercise we just did, we threw it up underneath at the opponent first, here, right? So we can hit their groin, hit their crotch, the center somewhere here. And then after we've done that, we can turn and hit back that way. This next one is the opposite. If I'm standing here and my opponent is to my right, instead of lifting the right side from underneath, I'm going to take the left side and throw it over the top. So if I'm here, I want to keep this hand as the pivot and throw this one over, right? That way. And then here's the trick. Remember, we don't want to just let go with one hand. So when I throw this, I'm actually going to let my hand slide and go here. You see, if you use the heavier stick, it should feel like it's twisting your wrist this way, right? Don't let it hurt. Don't let it have so much control that it causes your wrist to twist and your elbow and your shoulder, something like this. The reason I'm demonstrating that is because my arms are relaxed and the power is free floating, right? So the power turns to free float into that thing, right? So turn to hit. So this kind of turning. You can think of it just like a windshield wiper that you then attach a string to so that it can't turn all the way, right? So we're attaching this here. And then the next one, after I hit to this side, I'm going to hit to the exact same spot again. And this is, by the way, this is the reason that I don't know that we'll finish this one, because this is challenging to teach in person, is after I've hit to that same point, I'm going to turn my left foot and then unwind the stick and hit to the same point again, right? So if I have, maybe I can use the yoga ball for this particular example. Something that is my target here. We're hitting somewhere in the torso level, but because this is movable, I can put it in front of the camera and we can look at it. So I'm going to throw my stick over top of this thing to hit it over the head, and then I'm going to flip around and hit it on the same side. So iron fan looks like this. 1, 2. So it's as if the stick is turning in place, right? It goes 1, 2. Our body pivots around the pivot point for the stick, right? So iron fan 1 is very easy. We'll hold the stick about your donkey end with your right hand and take your left hand and throw it all the way over. If you have couch, be careful that there's no pets nearby if you hit the couch, right? Something like this. Take the hand, throw, right? You have, this is the hit. What's that? Right? But don't let go. So keep this other hand on the stick. And we want them flipped. We want them to be folded like this. So here, this is yin-yang palm. The palms are going the same direction, right? They're facing that way. And then when I throw this thing, I'm going to let this hand slide all the way and relax this way. And what's the purpose for this? Is so that this is my wrists, if you can see, they're twisted. They should feel like it's sprung this way. Because I'm going to use the turning of my body to unwind that to make the power for the next hit, right? So imagine, like, again, if we talk about a child's doll or action figure or something, and the wrist joints are real relaxed and it's tangled up this way, and so you pull up on the head and turn to untwist it the other way, right? So if this is my center, right, I'll do it from another angle if I'm facing this way, and I have 1 hit, 2 hits. So I'm hitting the same spot. My body is turning. Nothing else is, right? So for iron fan, I have 1, and then I turn my whole body 180, and then 2. But because that's weird, we're going to take a step. So on the first one, you can step forward with the right foot, and then on the second one, turn 180 with the left foot. Let's try this actually with no stick first. So from here, if we have this, take your left hand and reach over, pat the object, 1, and then turn 180, and then take your left hand and scoop underneath, 2. So it's the left hand, 1, 2. So I reach over, 1, I turn 180, 2. This has an interesting shape. If I face the camera this way, I go 1, 2. This is the feeling. Turn over, hit 180. What does it look like? And against the bag this way is my opponent's here. I hit 1. I have managed to get 2 hits in before turning. Let me see if I can center this thing. It's a ball, so it's rolling around, right? But if you see, if I'm facing this way, my camera is kind of in the center here, is I have 1, if it doesn't move, if it didn't move, right, like the bag doesn't move that much, I can start behind it and hit 1, 2. Now I'm in front of it, right? So we're hitting the same area, the same target. And we can use this as another sort of example. Is there's a precise point right there, right? I use this for Bagua, right? I can set up a post and do some circle walking around it. So there's my precise point, 1, and then I turn 180, 2. So if I use this line as my line of action, right? If I set this up here, I'm going to strike this first one along that line of action. That's my opponent's center line. I want to think of it as their center. So I'm going to turn it over this way. And then now watch. When this next foot steps forward, I turn 180 to the line of action, but my stick is still striking in that same angle. It hits to the same place, right? So I go 1, 2. Does that make sense? It's a weird one. When you get it, you feel the power, right? Yeah, this one is especially fun if you have something to actually hit, because you can sort of, the first one is, again, the distractor. It's the setup. 1, 2. You can really get power on the second one by twisting your body and unwinding the wrists, right? And it's a free form, floating power. Iron fan. I don't know what number it is. There's 1 and 2 in the second section. Before we continue, questions, thoughts, comments. Iron fan. Practice, throw. 1, 2. And that pivot on the other foot does everything. 1, 2. The hand's really staying right around the center. I can throw this one up and over, and it catches. And then from here, this next one is like a big swirly wind-up. So we throw it over and continue the twist to the next one. That's the iron fan. Throw, twist. That's the pop-up. So, pop up and back. By the way, if you have a different kind of staff, will make a different kind of noise, right? This one is special. I cut it so it makes a sound when it moves. So here, that's the iron fan. It has the whoosh the whole time. For some movements, you may only hear the whoosh at the end when there's power. But for the iron fan, it's continuous. It's a fan. It's working. Like that. This is the longer stick, by the way. So these techniques all work. Iron fan, maybe my opponent is way over there, where the stand is, right? Look, my iron fan can almost hit almost all the way over there, right? Throw 2. The longer, by the way, this is for the advanced. I know, Charlotte, you've studied this form before. The more that you throw your stick, the longer it takes to revert to the other side of the iron fan. So if I use a shorter stick, right? Right? I don't know if you can hear it, but this one goes very, very fast because it's short.
It's doing wrong, but I can get a really good whoosh on the first hit, but not on the second.
Okay, so that means the power is broken. It means the power stops here. So it should be continuous. The whoosh from the second one. By the way, here's a hint. The reason that they have a whoosh is because there's been some kind of something cut into them. So this is a great example. This is a rattan 6-foot rattan staff, and there's been grooves specifically cut into it. They look almost like a taiji shape here. I don't know if you can see those grooves. They only appear in this section, and that section of the staff is just slightly wider as well. The rest of it has been sanded down, and this one makes up a deep sound. I don't know how much of that comes across on the microphone, but yeah, you can cut grooves to act like a whistle, and that helps you to find that rotating power that we're looking for. Questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? Okay, we will review the iron fan again because Mark is not here, and there's other people that also online trying to learn. We're going to call that a night. It's a little bit early, so maybe 5 minutes early, something like that. Like I said, we'll come back to iron fan, and then the next one we've already done before, so we'll do like maybe 2 or 3 for the next class. By the way, this class the weapons training will probably take a break after we finish this form. Once we get all the way through the form and we have maybe some classes where we can practice the whole thing a few times together and you feel more familiar and there's no questions, we may take a hiatus. So maybe later in the summer, sometime in the fall, let's figure it out. Meanwhile, let's actually do some breathing. So inhaling, pulling the energy all the way up, make it a stretch. Reach to the top, reach all the way to the sides. Exhale, down and out, breathing. Inflate. Your arms should feel lighter after not having to hold the weight of the stick. Go at your own pace. Use your whole body to breathe, from your toes to your fingertips, from your tailbone to your head top. Expand the whole body to inflate. And then on the exhale, find where there's tension and allow it to go out. Reach all the way. Do 3 more, go at your own pace. And then bring everything back to the center. That's it. All right, call, email, text if you have questions. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great night. My pleasure. Thank you.